Hey, what's up you guys? Just for you MR2 and Celica enthusiasts out there, we have 3S-GTE jet tags and MR2 carbon fiber keychains on our brand new store. We've got tons of new designs coming soon, so be sure to check out the link in the description. Welcome you guys to one of the most insane vehicles I've ever driven in my entire life. It's kind of a Frankenstein build. This is an AW11 with a 5th gen 3S-GTE turbocharged 4-cylinder engine sitting right behind me. Okay. It's an evolution of the 3S-GTE that was in the 2nd generation Toyota MR2, right? And of course, the big thing about that is that the 2nd generation MR2 weighs about 2,800 pounds. So what you do is you shorten the wheelbase, narrow the car, take 400 pounds out, and then boost up your engine, your new 3S-GTE engine, up to about 315 wheel horsepower and 2,400 pounds. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Just rotates like nothing else I've driven. And that is not an exaggeration. This thing is, honestly, it feels very similar. I just had like a flashback in my mind of the Datsun 510 I drove back in Canada a couple of years ago. Very similar. This car is a perfect representation of the kind of engine swap I like most. Imagine an RB26 crammed into a Silvia or an S54 powered E30. You take the engine from the newer, heavier, but more powerful model and bring it back in time to beam life into the simpler and lighter chassis, all within the same manufacturer. This idea is nothing new, but pulling it off successfully was never meant to be easy. All right. You guys are gonna see how fast this car is. This thing is nuts. So 3,500 RPM. Yeah, it's fast. Wow. So I've driven a bone stock AW11 before, naturally aspirated, one of the earlier models. So it's kind of cool. This started out life actually as a supercharged AW11, which is even more rare than just a normal one. It's the one you kind of want, sought after one. You've got the wing in the back. You've got a little bit more aggressive styling to it. This car is like strapped down to the road. It's possibly one of my favorite cars I've ever driven. And I'm not just saying that. It is actually pretty remarkable how much feel you get in this car. There's no power steering, no ABS, no traction control. This one actually has the TRD differential in it with the E153 transaxle. It's a 5-speed transmission, the same transmission that you would find in any other MR2 turbo from the 90s. But this is a very rare TRD transmission. So my car has the VLSD, the viscous LSD, but this is the one you want. If you want a very aggressive differential, that is. You can hear it when I turn around up here, up at Neptune's Net, how loud it is. It's really clunky. I mean, it reminds me of driving like a 1,000 horsepower Supra in the way that you really feel it want to lock up, you know. With this setup, there's so much power in this thing. It wants to spin second, third, fourth gear even sometimes in the wet. Now for the twisty stuff. How does it do? I'm very curious to see how that TRD diff affects the handling and how the 3S can put the power down. Yeah, you've basically, you have to be going straight to hit full throttle. Very nice though, very nice. You can feel everything in the road through the steering. Everything, constant adjustments. I mean, this is a workout. Like, look at the steering wheel. It's all over the place. All over the place. The amount of feel you get through the front axle and the front tires of this vehicle is unlike most cars I've ever driven. The only two cars I can think of off the top of my head that even come close was that Exige S1 I drove, as well as the Datsun 510 that I drove. But other than that, nothing else comes close to this. I mean, I'm honestly not usually a no power steering guy. It has to be the right car. And the AW11 is one of those cars that's perfectly suited for no power steering. It's obvious. There's no weight over the front tires. There is no engine up there. So you get the maximum amount of feel through the steering you could possibly get. It is, honestly, it's like it's constantly alive, constantly moving. The steering, unless you're on the freeway, and even then, it never really settles. You know, it never finds a comfortable position. It's always begging you and asking you, demanding of your inputs and your corrections. If there was any car on this entire trip that I've driven that feels alive, this blows everything out of the water, and I mean everything. It's scary as hell. Way too much power, to be frank, for this chassis. Like, so much power for this chassis. Like the 3S-GTE is a perfect match for this car if you want it to try and kill you. Like, honestly, it's, oh my God, I'm sweating. This thing is insane. And you know what? It still has that playful body roll that Alex and I talked about in our Versus video. It still has that little sense of like, oh hey, even though this has 350 horsepower, you don't have to drive it like an SW20. You can still drive it like a momentum car. We were cruising behind an R8 Spider and a DBS, and honestly, it felt really good, like knowing that they're not paying any attention to this car, unless, you know, they have a thing for 80s Japanese sports cars, but they're most likely not paying attention to this car at all. But in a straight line, I could easily put up a fight against a stock DBS, which is a great feeling, because that car weighs like 5,000 pounds more than this car. Not actually, that's what we call an exaggeration. There you go, that's the diff. I hope you guys can feel that. Oh my God. Yeah, it's fast. Third gear, 4,000. Woo! Oh yeah. Bob, you have built a monster, an absolute unassuming monster, a wolf in sheep's clothing. So it's a very similar setup to my car. This has a CT15 turbocharger with a billet wheel, whereas mine is a CT20 with a billet wheel. So the power band's literally the exact same, except you've got 400 less pounds to carry around. So like when boost comes on, it feels like it comes on quicker and stronger and harder, and you have to power through the gears way quicker than you would in my car. Like, as much as the SW20 is already a dedicated sports car, it feels like a big boat, like a big GT car compared to this. So, something about this car is very familiar. There are a few things, like the power delivery, the way it exits corners. The differential is definitely a lot different feeling than the viscous, but in terms of like shifting and stuff, and the sounds, oh man, it's a trip. Bob, thank you so much for letting me to take your car out for the day. Yeah, this is one hell of a car. I might have to have you build me one of these at some point. Thank you so much, Bob. Bob MR2 on Instagram. He's an MR2 collector. He's got about 14 running and driving MR2s. If you want to check him out on Instagram, you can, and we just shot a feature video touring his garage and his driveway, so definitely check that out.
Yeah, the MR2 is basically the last car that I would expect to bring to Neptune's Net. Too little graphics. It's not orange or blue. But no, I'm excited. I think Bob has built himself a death trap. A very scary car. A well-built car, a track car. I would imagine going back to Bob and saying, whatever it is you're in on, I want in on it too. Like, I feel like there's something Bob knows that I don't know. Like, I think it's not just a gamble that he tossed that engine in that car and it's so amazing. I feel like it was a little bit more calculated than that.
I don't think so.
No. Well, you guys, that was a month in California. That's it, our last day, our last shoot, our last video. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the videos. Good way to end it off here at Neptune's Net, and we'll see you back in Vancouver.